Hello, my name is Dušana Podlucká and I'm a member of Social Science Department where I teach psychology. I was lucky to be part of all three seminars presented in this showcase, um, namely Language Across Curriculum, Women, Gender and Sexuality, and I was also a co-leader with Priscilla Stadler of this seminar on ableism in classroom. I would like to share with you the project that I do in my social psychology class, um, where most of the students are students of psychology major because it's a capstone course for this major. And I'll share with you my screen. And this in this class, we use critical social psychology perspective that challenges traditional uh, cognitive and experimental approach of that is used in social psychology that heavily relies on individualism and explaining all psychological processes as individualistic from individualistic perspective. Critical social psychology perspective explores the social origin of human mind and all psychological processes, including behavior, cognition, and emotions, and in the cultural and socio-physical context. So the goal of critical social psychology, as proposed by the authors of the textbook that we use in this class, is that the critical social psychology encourages researchers to examine how discourses are used to subordinate and silence particular individuals and groups in society. So we take this goal and students are positioned also as researchers that do the work of critical social psychology. We pay attention to topics of self as socially constructed. That's also the main focus of the final project. We explore disability, conformity and resistance, gender, sexuality, race, and at the end we look at all these identities from the perspective of intersectionality and how it helps us to understand the issues of social justice. So in this project, the goal is again to understand self as socially constructed. And again, in the words of the authors of um, our textbook, it's a fluid, multiple process embedded in social practices, institutions, and discourses, but not completely determined by this. Rather, as constructed, negotiated, and defended in relation to other people and in the light of prevailing values and conventions. So, again, the main idea here is to understand identity as constructed in the process of interacting with individual people, but also social institutions and so on. So, the first part of our project is that students write a personal narrative and they can either write about themselves or somebody they know very well and describe the situation where the person um, um, uh, uh, focuses on the experience that illustrates some kind of conflict or struggle that the person experienced or is experiencing as a result of discrimination or other kind of oppression or social injustice. So the first part is really just sharing this story. And other aspects of this project are um, all the readings that we do in class and the reading responses that students write to these readings, including some papers of former students, right? So students see not only good examples of papers, but also how other students contributed to the body of knowledge of critical social psychology. We also have a class workshop where students have an opportunity to practice the kind of analysis they will use later in their final project. And also students do presentations of their work in progress and thus can use the feedback that they got from the whole class, right, and incorporate that feedback in their final projects. And finally, in the final paper, students using critical social psychology perspective, they discuss and analyze either again themselves or the person of their choice as they conform, resist, challenge, or interrogate any dominant discourses, social practices, and positions, right, that are imposed by the society and culture. And again, using the words of Kirchner and Martin, as students analyze, right, these processes, they're able to explain how the person's self is constructed and understand that self is actually made up within as opposed to merely facilitated by culture and society, meaning that we are not simply influenced by culture and society, but we are really made up in the uh, uh, interactions in which we engage with these other people. Um, and finally, how I understand that this project promotes inclusion and students' understanding of inclusion is that by them having opportunity to share their stories and of their lived experiences and positioning students as authors of scientific knowledge and contributing to critical social psychology. Students have opportunities to explore intersectional nature of their identities, recognize and challenge the status quo, and identify the counter discourses they use to oppose oppressive and discriminatory dominant discourses and dominant practices that are often subjected to. Thus, in this process, students also explore their agentic positions and how they reimagined their identities and their selves. And finally, and importantly, students also reflect on the role of knowledge in promoting social justice, right? The role of theoretical knowledge that they acquire in the class, and they consider their own contributions to the field of psychology and specifically critical social psychology, while they develop their own activist agendas through within this project. Thank you.